as academics then do we do with the infinite?
Okay. The problem is that as academics, we're trained in a discipline, and our first loyalty is to our discipline. The only thing all historians agree on is protect the territory called history departments.
Right.
Right? Now, that's got to change.
Yes.
Now, how do you get historians who don't care about history? Aha. Well, how do you get English professors who don't care about literature in the classical way of drawing a moat around it and defending it as a rigid territory? All right. My own suspicion is that this question is going to be answered via the financial transformations coming in universities in the next 20 years, in which you're seeing it now in England. You're seeing cuts of 20 to 30% in the arts and humanities, and some people will just dig in and say, "Oh no! The arts and humanities make us human." And ridiculous argument, okay? But other people will say, "Okay, what's the opportunity here? All right, what's the opening here? All right? How can we generate interesting work that's not only critical but creative and experimental?" And you're going to see new things come, whether we like them or not. So, again, it's a kind of foot race between new groups and pre-existing institutions. No? Is that it?
No, run it.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. In what way exactly do you mean that the arts and humanities is the idea that it makes us human is silly?
Well, I was being a little sarcastic. I mean, there's just so many examples in modern society where really well-educated people have done such horrible things. You can't really say that the university makes people human, can you?
That's a broad view.
Yeah, it's a very broad. Yeah, well, okay, we could talk about the monsters in Serbia who were linguistic professors, right? We could talk, do you want to go into the legal profession in the United States?
Torture and...
You ever try to find a lawyer in society trained by one of our important law schools? You know what I'm saying. We have to de-idealize the idea of the university. This is a starting point. We have to understand how it works. The mechanisms, the how. What I called earlier, it's procedural management. Why are there very large history departments in universities, undergraduate level? All right, let me give one example. When the financial crash came in 2008, which was only one of many sub-crashes, but when the big one came, the stock market dropped 900 points in 2008. In the media, among academics, publications started immediately. The story was the avoidance of a second depression. This was the narrative that's now taken hold in the United States. No matter how you feel about it, wow, weren't we lucky? The feds did what they had to do, and we avoided a second Great Depression. Well, I would consider that to be an incredible failure of the historical profession. Do you mean to tell me in 50 years of historical representation, the only transpersonal or common story we could come up with was the story of avoidance? No understanding of what's new about this new capitalism? No, nothing like that came out. Oh, there were some stories about, oh yeah, it's too speculative and so on. But the master story, the incredible super story, right? The uber story was avoidance. Now, I should think that that is a deeply political imposition via writers, the media, other zones of representation, so that we didn't have to think about this. We could then get on with the psychological recovery, preparing to cope with the damage, getting used to downsizing, boomers, you can't retire. All of that comes with the dominance of the super story. So not sure then, and I'm sorry to be so severe on historians, but I think they really blew it in their collective enterprise by not encouraging people to say, well, wait a second, this article in the New York Times, this is wrong. This isn't the avoidance of the Second Depression. This might be the beginning of, or this might be the start of, or this might be the termination of. And so we would have many more ideas and concepts and notions to think about what has actually taken place. Okay, is that?
Yeah, thank you. So you're
Am I
looking
ranting
for,
yet?
you're looking for still the kind of public intellectual that hasn't existed for 20 or 30 years now that connect the university to society.
A long time. I could give you my genealogy of great independent American intellectuals. Sure. Yeah. Charles Sanders first. Melville. Okay, enough. Is that it?
It was me, actually. But it's a much broader question. It seems to me, listening to you and also hearing Daniel talk about you, that underlying a lot of what you're saying is really a kind of call for a different kind of teaching. And I'm wondering if I could invite you briefly to talk a little bit about the practical side of what you're discussing, because it seems to me that it has to do with the trenches of the classroom, even at the earliest ages. And if you have something to say about how you conceive of that work of teaching and how we might change it, not just at the university level, but I think it needs to start.
Well, it's a really broad, big thing.
Yeah. But
well,
that seems to me at the crux of the story.
I had great teachers.
How can we be better?
I had great teachers because we were all starving to death. Right? We had to read. We had to read one book a week per class as undergraduates. Okay? That's gone. Right? At my last post at Cal Arts, we couldn't ask students to read more than 20 pages a week in a critical theory class. Okay? Even though there were always a few students that were hungry for more and more, but then I became a recruiting station. Those were the ones that I could write letters of rec for and send on. So the whole entire condition of our intellectual life has changed. There are very few students today who will just sit in a chair for 10 hours and read. I can't do anything about that. In terms of institutions, unfortunately, we have to process students in such a kind of rapid fire manner. 4 years, they have to do this and that and this and that, these breadth and core and so on requirements, that it just doesn't, the students themselves don't see this. They don't see their professors as intellectuals. You see us as service content providers.
But they don't see intellectuals, period.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. All right, so then the broader question is well, what has happened to intellectuals in society? That again is an issue that's been going on for 40 or 50 years in this country. Everyone knows that magic word, interdisciplinarity. Well, it doesn't exist because to make a career, you have to specialize, and your recognition is based on specialized people who can recognize your specialization as an addition to the existing specialization. So the specialization grows. That's an oxymoron, right? Specialization grows. No, it doesn't stay. So, I mean, what did I say to this guy? Pray for deflation. The only way to do this is when the intellectuals themselves break out and can create new journals, small presses, blogosphere, internet alternative to this. Show people an alternative. But again, then the larger issue there is there's no economy to support that whatsoever.
Create a model of intellectualism if you don't have the intellectual.
Create a model of
intellectualism.
Yeah. Well, Daniel's comments about me they were so kind. And what he was really saying is that I was a terrific liar in class. You know, I could when you teach a book or an article, you have to be fair to it. You have to give the text. You gotta bring out what it's doing, right? And so I think that's a very good thing, but it's extremely difficult to do that when there's nothing in it for professors to do. In fact, many people can be punished when they're, especially the younger people, when their review committees say, well, wait a second, you know, yeah, sure, you have great teaching, but this is a research university and great teaching. You know, we like to run away from the undergraduates. We want you to run into, you know, your mainstream high-powered journals. It's a sad fact that a so-so article in critical inquiry gets much more importance and credence and credibility to it than the same person publishing 10 new different articles in journals that the committees don't recognize as important. Right? This hinging, I'm not talking about the sciences, the hinging of the arts and humanities to the research university is the problem.
Well, maybe on this note, we are sort of past 7 o'clock. Thank you, audience.
Staying.